G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. Today I'm looking at the Taranis X7S. See the S? It's not an X7, it's an X7S. And I recently reviewed the X7. I said it was probably the best value radio on the market today. And I would still say that after reviewing the 7S. And the 7S is a better radio, there's no doubt about it. Is it better value? Well, for some people it may be. But I think for the majority of people, it's probably not going to be a better value equation than the regular 7. And I'll tell you why as I go through the review, but certainly if you can afford the 7S, you will love some of the extra little features and quality touches that this radio has over the basic 7. So let's take a look first of all. What do we get? Well, we get this really cool case. I mean, I've been throwing my radios just in my backpack, and unfortunately, it means the sticks get flipped, and I'm worried that if I drop it, I'm going to break a switch, or maybe a stick unit will get bent. So this really nice little case is brilliant, and I've been using this in my backpack. You can see there's little dings in here in various places, because I've been using this for a couple of 3 weeks now. I didn't want to rush straight in and review this, because I wanted to get an opportunity to try out the differences between the regular 7 and this, and I think that takes a few weeks of actual hands on the sticks time. So I've had that, and now I'm going to tell you what I've found. Right, well, basically the transmitter looks just like a 7, but notice this, as well as a case, it comes with these little stick gimbal protectors here. These are brilliant, because once they're on there, you're not going to be able to damage those sticks. There's not going to be any way that these sticks, if you drop the transmitter or whatever, and it lands here, the impact's going on the metal surround, not actually on the stick itself. Brilliant, that is fantastic. This looks like a radio that's been designed for backpacking with the extra features you get along with it in this case. Now, another thing you'll notice here is, look at the ends of the sticks. Cat bum sticks. Honestly, why is it called a cat bum? Well, look at it. These are quite big area. I noticed some people, I think it was it Thomas from BMS Web? I saw one of his videos where he almost had blood on his thumbs from pushing so hard on the regular stick units, because they can be quite sharp. And these spread the load a lot more and enable you to sort of get a better finger position. When I first saw them, I didn't actually much like them. I thought, ew, cat's bum. But no, after using them, I really do. I kind of like them. Your fingers don't have to be positioned perfectly on the sticks to actually get a good firm grip. And that is really nice, because sometimes, if you're really stretching on the sticks, and if you're flying 3D, for example, and you're going from extreme to extreme, it can be quite hard to keep your thumbs in exactly the right position on the sticks. Solves the problems. Of course, if you're a pincher, you may not like that quite so much, because it's a wider pinch. But I don't know, I'm not a pincher, so it doesn't affect me, but I do like these from the view of a thumber. Right, and you'll notice here, look, black vinyl. Let's take it out of the box. Enough of having it in the box. Excuse me. Let's push the box to the side. We'll come back to that later and what goodies are in there, but let's take a closer look at the beauty that is this radio. And on the face of it, there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference, does there? I mean, it's got some black vinyl down the sides here, and actually that's a really nice accent. It makes the radio just look so much less toy-like. It makes it look more, I don't know, more expensive, because it is more expensive. But this is really just vinyl that's been stuck on. I mean, there's no magic here. It's just sort of like an artificial leather-like vinyl that's been glued on there. But visually, and also in terms of ergonomics, it's nice. It gives you grip. It actually adds to the grip, because one of my complaints with the 7X was that it looked very shiny, waxy plastic everywhere. It looked kind of toy and cheap-like. I think they've solved that problem with this little bit of vinyl. And I know Ron here at the club, he's stuck some vinyl on his to make it look like a 7S. I think he needs to do a better job, but he did, and it made his transmitter look kind of much better. Right, so that's a cosmetic thing, but also a practical thing from the view of if it's the middle of summer and you've got sweaty hands, you're not going to drop your transmitter. Of course, there's still the rubber finger grips on the back, which is great. And there's another quite subtle change with this radio over the regular 7. If you look at the side, see the switches? They're actually, the plate on which the switch is mounted is actually kind of angled. It's got a bevel to it. So the switches are now facing up a bit. And that's kind of important, because a number of people who are pinchers had noted that it was easy to bump the switches when they are moving the sticks with their fingers. And of course, now that these are angled back a bit, that shouldn't be quite as much of a problem, which is good for pinchers. It's a small detail, but it shows that FrSky are listening to the market and responding. Brilliant. Another thing that is different with the 7S is it comes with a battery. Yes, it does. The regular 7 has I think it's a 6-cell AA holder, and to be honest, no, you don't want to use AA batteries with alkalines or rechargeables in a radio control transmitter, just pushing them into a regular battery holder. Do not use a regular battery holder, because the smallest amount of oxide on the end of a battery or on the holder can cause all sorts of problems with the transmitter can cause it to stop working until you give it a bang. And if you're flying down the runway at 100 miles an hour, 2 feet above the ground, and your transmitter decides it's going to go to sleep for a while, the outcome is probably not going to be what you're looking for. So this one has, there we go, has the FrSky nickel metal hydride pack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells, AA cells, fantastic. But I'm not totally happy. In fact, they could have done this a lot better. Let me take the battery out and show you what I'm talking about. Here we go. So there you are. It's just a, what is it, 2000 milliamp, 7.2 volts. There we go. Pretty straightforward. But this wire here is plastic. It's not silicon. It should be silicon. Plastic wires, they tend to put a lot of stress on the end of the wires. I've mentioned this in quite a few reviews where manufacturers have used cheap plastic wire, and that's what they've done here. But worst of all is the way it connects to the radio. Look, this is like a balance lead connector in here, and this is a balance lead connector that plugs into it, but it's soldered to the board. So constantly pulling this off and on will eventually cause that connector to peel off the board or become intermittent, whatever. It's really a bad idea. Why should you have to unplug your battery to charge it? There's no reason on earth why you should have to do that. What I'm going to do with mine is I'm going to solder into here, just parallel off here, a little lead cycle, a JST or a servo lead, so I can plug in the charger, plug it into a charger without having to take it off, unplug it from the circuit board. That will make life so much simpler and make for a far more reliable setup, honestly. Now, let's put the back on. So, going back to what's in the box, this is where I got a little confused to start with. Inside the box there is a charger. Because it comes with a battery, they provide a charger. Here it is, wall wart charger. Pretty normal. The pins will depend on which country you come or go buy it in. This is obviously American, but in Australia it would have angled pins, and EU it would have round pins, I suppose, I assume, or you get an adapter. But on the other end there's a barrel connector. What? So I look for a barrel connector. There isn't one. There's no barrel connector on this transmitter, so I thought, how the hell are you supposed to charge the battery? And then I noticed something else. This, and I think Mr. Steele has commented on this with the 10S, the X10, XS10 or whatever it is. This is the second part of the charge system, and it sucks. You've got to have that. You've got to plug your barrel connector into there, and then that little connector I showed you on the battery, unplug it from the circuit board, plug it into there. Leave it charging, then unplug it from there, plug it back in the circuit board. You can see what's going to happen. Plugging, unplugging, plastic wires, plugging, unplugging, circuit board. Oh, it's a doom to failure. Weakest point of the whole setup, this charge system. But as I say, I'm going to modify mine as I did on my Taranis. I'll show you what I've done with my Taranis so you can see what I'm going to do with this. Okay, here's my X9D Taranis, and in the back I put an LiFe battery. Ta-da! And again, it has this kind of crappy ass balancy lead connector up here. So what I did was, instead I soldered in here, you can see, hopefully you can see, I paralleled across the wires. There's my balance lead for charging, but I paralleled across the wires that go to that plug. I just put a servo connector on. So now I can plug this into my charger, my 4-button charger, as if it was a receiver battery, and charge it without even unplugging that, without even having to unplug that from the circuit board. That makes life so much simpler. The battery doesn't have to come out. I unplug nothing. It's just easy peasy. Why didn't FrSky do that? Why didn't they use silicon wires on the battery and have a separate charging lead, separate fly lead for charging? It would have been so good. I know that a lot of other batteries designed for transmitter use have a separate charging fly lead. It's not rocket science. It cost you about 15 cents in components. It would have made a big difference to the ease with which you can recharge your X7S. And what else comes in the box? Well, you get a lead neck strap. I'm a thumber, so I don't need a neck strap. Some people like to pinch, they use a neck strap. It's horses for courses. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just what some people prefer. So if you're going to use a neck strap, you could, I suppose, let me just try this. You could just hook this through there, could you? This is all new territory to me. I don't use a neck strap. In which case the transmitter doesn't really balance very well. I don't think it's hanging ass down, right? Which is why they provide you with this thing. This is the balancing thing for the neck strap. So if you want your transmitter to hang pretty level, what you do is, let me take this out of here. Yeah. See why I don't use a neck strap, eh? What you do is you bolt this through there like that. So this then hangs down here, and you can choose the point at which you plug this on so that the transmitter will balance, move it back, get the center of gravity right, eh? Pretty simple. But Again, attention to detail is a bit missing here, because when you bolt that on there, it covers up the off-on switch. So you've got to get your finger in there. Okay, if you've got big fat booty fingers, you might have a bit of trouble getting your finger in there. And here is one thing I noticed which is different. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but with the X7, to turn on your transmitter, you push this little button here. Let's try it with the X7S. Oh. 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 Hang on, what's going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. With this, you actually have to hold down the button. Honestly, you have to hold the button down. Let's give that a try. There you go. Oh dear, I better talk over this so we don't get a copyright strike, because you know what that is. So there you go, like, and then of course pull that down there, switch warning, where are we? There we go. Now we're all set to go. But you have to hold that button down. So if you've got this little bracket in the way and you're getting your butty finger in there trying to hold that down for 3 or 4 seconds to make it start, why? What? If I had designed this radio, which I didn't, but if I had, I would have put my switch up here and my bracket down there, so that it would have been well clear of the little bracket thing. You put your switch up here somewhere. Doesn't matter. But no, that's what FrSky have chosen to do. So you think they would have learned, because it was the same problem pretty much on the Taranis 9X, I think. They had a similar problem. Getting at the switch with the balancing bracket on was a pain in the backside. But they didn't learn from that one. Never mind. Small points. Let's turn it off. There you go. Done. Right, most of the other functions are exactly the same as the 7. So if you want to see what they are, go and look at my review of the X7 and you'll see. Apparently this has a wireless trainer port, which is kind of, they're catching up to Spectrum in that respect. But of course it's only any good if you've got another radio, like another 7X or X7S with a wireless trainer port. So for most people it's probably not going to be a big thing. Again, no sliders on this, so this will be, and I've already converted over quite a few of my multi-rotors to this, this will be my multi-rotor radio, but the X9 will remain my fixed wing radio, because I love the sliders and this doesn't have sliders. But if you're looking at a radio for quads, mini quads, drones, whatever, this is pretty damn good. And I've left the best till last. The final feature, the thing that makes this more expensive than the regular 7, the thing that probably justifies the cost, are the sticks. No, not the cat bum ends, but these are Hall effect sticks, which means there's no potentiometer, there's no wiper, there's no wear inside a potentiometer. My old 9X or X9, unfortunately, it's showing the signs of worn pots. It's getting quite skitterish, jittery near the centre, because with the old Parkies, I spend a lot of time doing this, and that's wearing the centre of the pot out. And over time, any pot will wear like that. So these, in theory, will not wear out like that. And I had high hopes. The reason I really wanted this X7S was because I wanted the Hall effect sticks, because another thing that I like, just a personal preference, is very light sticks. I like my sticks to be very light, because with the Parkies, having very light sticks means that I don't shake quite so much. If I'm not putting a lot of muscle effort in, I can be reasonably smooth, but when I have to put a bit of force on, then I get all shaky. So I like to have my stick set up really light, and I'll show you that. I've got a piece of cardboard here. Now this is my throttle stick is set up as light as I like it. See, that cardboard doesn't even bend. That stick is so light, because I'm mode 1, my throttle's on the right, stick is so light that that's how I like my sticks. But if I try and do it left, oh, it's not so bad. You look at this, the cardboard bends, because the spring pressure on the sticks themselves is really high. And I've backed these right off, but you can't get light. If you like really light sticks, these are not going to work for you. The problem being that I've done a teardown now. Now this is the 4th time I've made this video. Honestly, I've had audio problems, I had all sorts of issues. So I can't remember what I did before, but I'm going to cut to the piece I did originally, which worked, showing you inside the radio and how the springs on the stick systems work. And that shows that the problem is they've used springs that are really, really short. I don't know why, but really, really short. And they're stretching them to about twice their length, which means when you get these as light as possible, there's still a lot of tension because the spring's being stretched to twice its length. A better way to do it is to have a spring which is longer and stretched only 50% of its length. And that means you can have a more linear spring and a lighter spring across the entire travel of the stick. It doesn't work on this. The springs are too short, and therefore if you back it off enough to make it light, then you lose your centering because the spring's fully compressed before the stick gets back to the center. Little thing. Most people are not going to worry about it because most people probably don't mind having their sticks pretty tight and pretty springy, but I like mine much looser than this. Nevertheless, I have just flown with it, and I've adapted to it. And I can blame it now for my bad flying. Yeah, that's a bonus. But yeah, that's pretty much the radio. I'll show you now some footage I took where I took the back off so you can have a look inside. We can look at the general quality and see if there's anything different between this and the X7. Right, it's time to take a look at the guts of this thing, and it's not that much difference to the normal Q7. Perhaps the most obvious thing you'll spot is it's got Hall effect stick units, which are really good from the perspective that they just don't wear out. At least the pots don't wear out. My original Taranis, which I've had for many years, the pots are starting to get a bit worn on that. The centering they get noisy around center, and on mini quads especially, where you want the 0 point to always be the same 0 point, it's starting to wander a bit, and that makes it difficult to set up your flight controller because you've got to put a bit of deadband in to avoid the wandering effect. So yeah, it doesn't matter too much on fixed wing, but when you're getting down to multi-rotors and mini quads with a great deal of response to the stick units, worn sticks are not a good look. So these Hall effects should be a heap better. Now, I was a little disappointed with the Hall effect stick units in respect to the amount of adjustability on the spring tension. Now, the way these things work is it's pretty simple. It's a really fundamental thing. I'll see if I can catch it on the side here, and so you can see the way it works. Now, there's a little lever here. Which side's going to be the best way to look at it? Maybe from here. Hang on a minute. I'll do some playing around with the camera. Right, you can see a lever in the middle of your screen there, and when I move, where's the stick? Here we go. When I move the stick, you can see that there's a spring being stretched. Okay, all well and good. Now, there is also a little control just down in there with an Allen key. You can adjust that so you can basically put some preload on the spring. But the problem is I actually find this to be just a little bit too hard as it is now, and you can see there's not much preload on that spring. If I reduce the spring tension anymore, it's not going to center because there's nothing holding that lever down to hold the stick in the middle position. So even at the lower setting, that's at the end here, it's really quite strong. I like mine lighter, and because I've used a short spring with not much throw, there's not a lot of adjustment you can have there. If you want to make that work better, you've got to use different geometry, and that's the geometry we've got, so we're stuck with it. So if you like light sticks, you may find that the Hall effect sticks perhaps not as good as other stick units. But I'm just going to suck it and see. Anything's got to be better than the sort of tired, worn out stick units I've got in my Taranis at the moment. So yeah, I'm happy I can adapt to that. I know other transmitters, like for example the high-tech Aurora has got fantastically tunable stick units. You can have them feather light and they still center perfectly. And when you think about it, because we've got no friction from a pot, you should be able to get really good light sticks with good centering with a Hall effect sensor, but in this case, you don't get the lightness. And I think it's a little bit of a shame. The Horus seems to be much lighter and still have good centering. So I don't know what they did with these stick units. They're still really good. I mean, I'm really scratching to find things to complain about here. So don't worry too much. It's not a deal breaker at all. Right, let's have a look at some of the other stuff that often lets down these cheaper transmitters. And one of those things is how they wire the switches up. Now, as you can see in here, perhaps you can see, there's heat shrink. Yay, heat shrink on the wires that go to the switches, so they're not going to flex and fray and break off over time. Now, these are also, no, that is plastic, I think. Yeah, they're plastic wires, so that's all right. On the stick units themselves, these wires here, they've got a sort of glue on there, and these feel like silicon. So, yeah, these aren't going to break or fray. That's really good. I like that. It's well done. Excellent. The cables themselves are nicely tied out of the way. They're not going to snag on things when you put the back on. Everything else is typical FrSky. We've got a really nice, I've already covered this in my other review of the Q7, nicely laid out board, plenty of processor power, no problems at all. Up the top there with the 2.4 gig board, the antenna itself is nicely restrained with a big glob of hot snot where it goes onto the board. That's very nice. Yeah, nothing to complain about. There is a battery down here for the real-time clock. I should think your transmitter will wear out before that battery ever needs replacing, but if it does need replacing, it's going to be a pretty simple job. Right, so there you go, that's it. Now, the big question, is this the best value radio on the market? Well, actually, no, it's not. The standard, in my opinion, the standard X7 is a better value radio. It's quite a bit cheaper than this. And if you don't need the Hall effect sticks, because all the sticks in the X7 are really good quality sticks. They really work very well. The Hall effect's sort of gilding the lily. If you don't need or want Hall effect sticks, then the X7 is probably going to be a better buy. But if you want Hall effect sticks, which will last you forever, probably at least 6 months longer than forever, then you'd go for this one. If you want cat's bum stick ends, you could either buy them separately or you could go for this radio. If you like the nice leatherette sides that make it look so much nicer than the 7S, then the 7, then get the 7S. If you are a pincher and you find that these switches get in the way, get the 7S. If you need wireless training, wireless trainer port, get the 7S. If you want a radio that comes with a battery, albeit with a real cockamamie charging setup, get the 7S. There you go. You've got the choice. FrSky have given you the choice. If you want the really nice carrying case, which would cost you money if you bought it somewhere else, get the 7S. So there you go. It's your choice. Me, if I was buying these radios, if I was on a budget, I'd just buy the 7. If I could afford it, I'd buy the 7S. But prices of this, the 7S is getting up into Taranis X9 territory. So you've got to decide. If you are a mini quad fly, if you do not need sliders, then I would buy this over the X9. Buy this over the X9. It's better value than the X9 if you do not need sliders. If you want sliders, I'd go for the X9. So it's quite complicated, isn't it? You've got to decide what you want and then look at what these radios offer before you make your mind up. But trust me, this is a really good radio. Not quite the value proposition of the X7, but it's really, it's a better radio. It's a better radio than the X7, but the value proposition is a little bit lower. But if you can afford to buy it, buy it. And speaking of buying it, I do not have any affiliate schemes set up, as you know, and when I do have them set up, they won't be product specific. So I would like to say this came free of charge. They sent it for review from GearBest, gearbest.com. And I don't make a bean if you buy it from GearBest, but I would say to you, please follow the link in the description of this video to the GearBest website and have a look at the specs and have a look at their price and have a look at the terms and conditions. If it matches up with other suppliers, then if you want to buy one, buy it from GearBest. Show them that them supporting the channel has a benefit to them, and then they will provide more products for review, and you'll get to see more products like this reviewed, because FrSky, they don't want to know. I think, gee, panning that Horus was like the end of an era, wasn't it? Never mind, there you go. So if you've got questions, comments, anything you want to know about this radio, let me know. I'm still using it. I will continue using it. It's going to be my mini quad radio of choice. And so if I have any problems, I will certainly tell you. But in the meantime, you know, like so far, it's been absolutely brilliant, apart from the stiffer than, or the springier than what I'd like sticks. No other complaints really, apart from that, and the battery charging. So I better stop now before I find more problems. No, there you go. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
.8 volt, 10.7 volt.